All right, welcome to Tilted Perceptions Podcast, starring me, Jimmy B. So I'm doing a pilot run. I've never done a podcast before, but something inside of me has been telling me to try one. So I'm learning as I go. So if the sound quality isn't that great, just bear with me. I will get better as I do this. One of the best ways to learn anything is just to do it, and I might take my lumps as I go along, but eventually I will. I'm sure I'll get where I want to be, and if this is something that I want to do, I will find a way. Yeah, so I went online searching for different podcast names. I had a few names in mind, and holy cow, there are a lot of people that do podcasts, and there's a lot of names that are already taken. So what I came up with is Tilted Perceptions for mine. No one has that yet. Hopefully, I can coin that and keep that for my own Tilted Perceptions, starring Jimmy B. And I feel like this is just going to be a pilot run. I'm going to do a few episodes and see how it goes. I'm going to start out solo, and if I gain some momentum or I get some followers and people like listening to what I have to say, then maybe I'll entertain the idea of getting some people on here to interview. But for now, it's just going to be solo. And I figured the first episode, what I can do is just try to introduce myself and give you a little background and let you know who I am. Obviously, if you're my friend and you follow me, you know my story and you know about me. But maybe you're new to hearing me and you don't even know who I am. So I'm going to explain who I am and what I'm about and how I was raised and my struggles with addiction and whatnot and who I am today. And then after I tell a little bit of my story, I think I'm going to get into some other um, episode ideas and things that I would like to discuss moving forward. And yeah, we'll start there. So I'm 43. My birthday is April 4th, 1981. I was raised by my mom. I have a younger sister, 5 years younger. I have a dad, but he died at 46 years old from cirrhosis of the liver and slamming dope, doing a lot of hard drugs. He was never around. He abandoned my mom when she was pregnant with me. I maybe seen my dad 100 days out of 23 years before he died. So that was a huge void in my life. Huge void, and I missed it, I didn't have anybody to teach me how to be a man. I was uncomfortable in my skin. I had a hard time fitting in. I was super shy, super uncomfortable. My mom, God bless her, she did the best she could raising me and my sister. However, my mom also had a terrible picker in men. She picked men that weren't the nicest to her, abused her or whatnot. I don't want to get too much into that, but seeing her sad and emotional and just, it added to my fear and insecurity, and I never felt comfortable or safe in my own home. And I didn't know how to talk about anything that was bothering me, so I would internalize everything. And I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to deal with any of the things that bothered me. I didn't know how to bring it up in a conversation. I just stuffed everything. And, you know, throughout my life, it led me to a life of drugs and alcohol and addiction. And I'll get into it, but that life almost killed me, and I was fortunate enough to get sober at 26 years old and now have been clean and sober from drugs and alcohol for over 17 years. As a matter of fact, if I make it to June, every June 13th is another milestone. So June 13th next year in 2025, God willing, if I make it there, it would be 18 years, which is pretty incredible. It's actually remarkable. I didn't think that it was possible to stop. Um, I didn't think it was in my deck of cards. I honestly thought that I was going to die and I was okay with it. But during my childhood, and the reason I talk about this stuff is because I feel like it's important. If what I've learned in life, and I find it to be true, that if I'm honest and open and transparent with you, you might be honest and open and transparent with me. Honesty breeds honesty, right? So if I speak to you from a place of authenticity and tell you how I really felt and what was really going on, maybe someone out there went through something similar that can relate, and that might potentially open them up to talk about the things that bother them, which is good therapy, right? Baseline therapy is talking about the things that bother us and getting it out, right? Because we're only as sick as our secret. So that was during my childhood, like I said, just not having a dad around, mom dealing with certain types of abuse from different boyfriends, added to my fear and insecurity. I honestly feel like food was my first drug. I gravitated towards food and junk food, and I would eat a lot. And as a result of eating a lot, I got fat, I got overweight, and um, yeah, when you're overweight and you're in elementary school and you're a young kid, people make fun of you. Kids are mean, right? I got bullied. I got picked on. I got hit, beat up sometimes just for being fat. And that added to my fear and insecurity, and I didn't know how to deal with that, and I was afraid to go to school. I was afraid to interact with people. I felt uncomfortable in my own skin. I didn't like my existence. I had some sexual stuff happen to me as a kid. I'm not going to touch too much on that now. Maybe I will in another episode. But add that in there, and that adds to fear and insecurity, and what a mess, you know. And then the last, I like the things I'm talking about is like childhood trauma, right? And I feel like most of us have those. Most of us have these childhood traumas that we don't necessarily want to talk about or discuss, but most people have something or similar situations that maybe you were uncomfortable with, that you grew up with, and until we like deal with it and tackle the bull by its horns and like talk about it, we really can't get any relief or true sense of freedom of the spirit, until we do that. And so that was a few things. And then the last thing is when I was 12 years old, I went to go visit my estranged father that I hardly ever seen, and I always wondered why I wasn't able to see my dad that much. But knowing what I know today, and being an alcoholic and an addict myself and working with lots of alcoholics and addicts, I can understand why my mom wouldn't want me to see my dad if he was drinking and using all the time, and he was. When I would go to visit him, he was always drunk or he's always loaded. And it's, you know, I get it. I understand now. I didn't understand back then. So, anyways, I went to go visit my dad when my mom was willing enough to let me go visit him during the summer or whatever, wherever he was staying. He happened to be living in Oregon at the time, and I went to Oregon to go visit him. And I was there with one of my cousins, and to make a long story shorter, while on this trip, I witnessed a murder. I seen somebody get shot in the face and lose their life over some nonsense. All the guy said was, "That's a piece of shit." And the murderer said, "What? You trying to tell me this is a piece of shit gun, motherfucker?" And shot him. So I seen that. And that's traumatic. I mean, it would be traumatic if we seen that right now. We walked out our door and seen that right now, it'd be traumatic. But let alone a 12-year-old that already has other childhood traumas that he's trying to deal with. So, whew, add that on top of it, right? And now man, I do not like the way that I feel, and I need some type of escape. So that's kind of like my segue into drugs and alcohol, right? And most people's story that I hear starts right around 12 or 13, you know, and I was right along with them, and I kind of discovered, marijuana, and which led me to alcohol. And when I discovered alcohol, it was like the best thing ever. It was like the weight of the world was lifted off my shoulders. It was like I finally had some sense of relief that I didn't have to feel the way that I was feeling. I didn't realize that I was an alcoholic or an addict back then. I just know that I liked the way that I felt, and I didn't have to deal with whatever was bothering me internally at that time. And man, I didn't ease my way into alcoholism. I drank for oblivion from the very first drink I ever took, and that was kind of the case for me. My whole drinking and using career was just, there was never enough. I need it all. I need more. I don't know the actual percentages, but if I was to guess, I would say that I blacked out probably 85% of the time that I drank. There's a lot that I don't remember. There was a good 5 year span that's just one big blur. Like everything is blended. I can't, remember what party was where or with who or whatever. It's just like all one big blur with flashes of people and places and things. It's a progressive disease, man, and it had a hold of me, and it really started derailing my life after I got out of high school. You know, I feel like I could have done more in sports. I feel like I was always pretty competitive and somewhat athletic and pretty good at certain things, and I was just too busy getting drunk and loaded to pursue any of those. So I graduated high school no problem. I always did my homework, and showed up to school most of the time. And I think I graduated like a 2.7 or something. Nothing to brag about, but I did what I needed to do to get my diploma. That wasn't too hard for me. But in the in between time, during the last few years of high school, all I did was wanted to party and drink and use and have a good time and blot out the inner turmoil and emotional stuff that was going on with me, and completely just uncomfortable in my own skin without alcohol. I didn't like who I was unless I was drinking. I felt like I had to prove myself to people or whatever. That's such a weird thing to me today, thinking about that. Trying to, prove myself to people over how much I could drink or how big of a line I could do or whatever. It's just really odd to me today. But back then I thought it was cool. And that it meant I was something. And I thought, I used to joke around when I was younger that I would, you know, I might, I'll probably die at 40, and I was completely okay with it, like it was a badge of honor or something. Like I lived a life so full of getting drunk and loaded that I'm probably going to die earlier. Man, something to be proud of. Crazy. Um, so my disease progressed. I couldn't really hold any jobs down. My grandpa got me into the pipe fitters union when I was young. I think I was 19 when I first got into the pipe fitters union, and I was not ready to be a functioning member of society and go to work every day. And I was just a mess. I couldn't go a day without drinking, and I just pissed jobs away. And I would always show up late or hungover or miss Mondays and Wednesdays and Friday. I was just an absolute disaster. And when I was working and collecting a paycheck, it was like as soon as I got paid, within a couple of days, my money was gone. It went to support my habit, whatever my habit was at the time. And, you know, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. And that was just kind of my existence. And then I discovered meth, right? And meth was introduced to me at a house party one time, and I was belligerently drunk, like normal. And somebody had it and told me to hit it, sobered me up. And I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. Wow, I can drink more. That was my thinking at the time. Like, dude, this is like a wonder drug. You know, and now I can, I can kind of understand what's going on, and I can drink more beer, and I'm not so belligerently drunk. How cool is that? And that's how it started. And it just continued to get worse. And then what happened is meth kind of overpowered alcohol after some point, and I became a tweaker. And my life revolved around getting high. It was more bang for your buck in my eyes. I used to do a bunch of cocaine too, and cocaine would last like a night, and it was expensive. And then after that night's over and you get rid of the drip, like, dang, I just wasted all that money. And you get some meth, could be up for a week, damn near, for a lot less money. I lasted longer, you lose weight. I thought it was a lot better. My thinking was skewed back then on different things, and yeah, it just progressively got worse. And kind of one of the things that happened in my life that really, I like to say, threw me to my bottom was when my grandpa died. So my grandpa, my mom's dad, was kind of like the father figure in my life. He was a really good man, a good example of a man, very quiet. Not like a dad. I mean, he was my grandpa, but he just was everybody loved him. He was just a really good example of a man. And I admired him tremendously, and I looked up to him, and I loved him dearly. And and I lived with him too. I lived with him for quite a few years before he passed. And when I lived with him and I lived under his roof, I felt extreme guilt and shame living under his roof, doing what I was doing. I didn't even want to make eye contact with him. I just felt terrible. And so I said that to say this, is that I didn't have much of a relationship with my grandpa the last few years of his life because I was too busy getting drunk and loaded. And I felt ashamed and I felt guilty for living there, doing what I was doing. And, I went out for a trip to Modesto with some friends on this weekend bender, and it was a terrible weekend. One of those weekends where you're like blacked out drunk, you're emotional, you're crying, you're getting in fights with friends, and you all rode together, and you just can't wait to get home, but you're stuck there. One of those type bender type weekends, just disaster weekend. And I remember getting home from that weekend and finally getting dropped off at my house, and I walked into my grandpa's house, and I walked into my room, and I walked straight past his door, and I seen him, laying in his bed, watching TV, and I didn't even say nothing to him. I just, again, guilt and shame, and just kind of walked right into my room and passed out drunk. And I got up the next day, and um, I found my grandpa dead in his chair. And I can't tell you how bad that made me feel. I can't even put into words to express the shame, the guilt, and the remorse that I had of finding him dead, sitting in his chair. It's something that, like the murder I witnessed when I was 12, that just sticks with you and never goes away. And it's just there, and you can remember it like it was yesterday. And dead body, but yeah, and I still, get choked up sometimes thinking about it. But it was after that I didn't care. After that, I had so much shame and guilt and remorse just internally, and there was never enough of anything to take that pain away. So I drank for oblivion, and I used as much as I could get my hands on, and that's when really the meth kind of just overtook everything. And um, yeah, I stayed up a lot. Um, I went on some long days on end missions, man. I remember I stayed up about 24 days one time. You know, that's a long time. That affects your mind a lot. And I mean, I laid down and I had those tweaker naps where you're like you're sweating, and you pretend sleeping, but you're not really sleeping, And I just hit a number on my mind and on my brain. I fried my brain, and I started hearing voices. I got into this psychosis, this meth-induced schizophrenia, and it was bad. I don't know if anybody's ever seen the Truman Show with Jim Carrey, but I literally thought that I was on my own TV show, that I was on a MTV reality TV show, and that everybody knew about, and everybody was watching me on their computers. And I thought that I could communicate to people through wires. I thought I was the next big celebrity. All my financial problems were going to be solved. I thought E40 was going to give me $1 million check at the end of my show. I thought all kinds of crazy stuff. And I absolutely 100% believed it. I believed it wholeheartedly. The voices were loud. And I remember when the voices started, and I'm going to get into this in later episodes about the psychosis aspect of doing too much meth, and the schizophrenia and the voices. I feel like it's very intriguing, especially having overcome that and lived it as well. Um, yeah, I remember smoking a bowl of meth at my buddy's house in his garage, and just being extremely thirsty after that. And I went into his kitchen to drink some water, and I like basically started convulsing, standing up, just kind of like almost like seizing, standing up. And when I stopped convulsing, I seen like an apparition of like a demented Joker pop out of this box, um, point at me, start laughing, and saying, "I just unlocked the door to your brain. I just unlocked the door to your brain." Believe what you want. I remember what I saw, and it was not long after that the voices started, right? And when I say the voices, I'm not talking about the voice. I feel like everybody has the voice of reason, the good voice, the bad voice. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about schizophrenic, psychosis voices. These are the ones that your mind makes up or whatever. Like something is haywired or misfired in your brain, and now you are in a completely alternate reality um, through your mind. So the voices I were hearing was like voices of my friends or celebrities or people that were commenting on my show and what I was doing. For example, if I was just going about my everyday life, whatever I was doing, I would have a conversation going on in my mind that my friends are having back and forth talking to each other, and I thought it was them watching me on the computer screen. And it never went away. There was constant chatter, there was constant voices constantly people talking to me. I thought I could communicate with people through my mind, through wires, through TV screens, mirrors. It was insane. It was absolutely insane. But I believed that it was real with everything in me. And um, man, it took a toll on me hard. I don't wish that on my worst enemy. When I say that I almost died from this disease, that's what I mean because um, like the voices were so loud and they never stopped, and it was like months and months and months of this that I felt like killing myself, and I really was like trying to plan ways on how to do it to end my life because I just cannot live with these voices anymore in the way that I was feeling. I don't know if anybody can relate to this or not, but I got to this place where I hated the way that I felt when I was drinking and using, and I hated the way that I felt when I was sober. There was no like happy place for me. Either or sucked tremendously, and at this point, why am I even here? You know, and I remember thinking that also in the back of my mind that if I try to kill myself, if I die, I'm okay with it. But if I somehow survive and don't die, whoever's videotaping me will understand that I mean business and they'll stop taping me. So, like, I was totally into the videotaping for a while, but I mean, when you feel like you have no privacy, that everywhere you go there's a camera, even when you're taking a shower, you're taking a shit, or whatever, and the constant voices, and you thinking that everybody can hear your deepest, darkest thoughts, it's overwhelming. You get irritated. It's bad. It's the best way I can explain it in the end is it's like Groundhog's Day, that movie with Bill Murray, where every day is exactly the same. And in my case, every day was exactly the same. Hoping that it would end, that the show would end, that all my problems would be solved, and that um, you know it would be over. But it never ended, and it's just the mental anguish and torture that was going on inside my mind was absolutely bananas, and man, it was hard. So I attempted recovery. Um, I was in and out of 12-step meetings. I was in and out of outpatient rehab programs. I had a really hard time staying and achieving any real amount of sobriety or clean time. The 60-day chip was the hardest one for me to get. I could get you 30 if I was lucky, 40, maybe 44. I had some 18, 12. I just kept going in and out. Couldn't figure this thing out, but I also really didn't do much for myself other than go sit in these places and hope that something magical will happen. It's not how it works. If you want anything in life, you have to work for it. It requires work, and getting clean and sober requires a lot of work on yourself. And I've done a lot of work on myself over the years, and I had to do it in the very beginning in order to get any type of relief. And kind of the way that it worked for me. Um, I'll share this and then kind of wrap it up for today, and then I'll get into a lot of this stuff as we move forward with these podcasts. But I was ready to die. Okay, so I had about 18 days at this point, and the voices, the obsession of my mind told me that I should just go get another drink. The obsession is so loud and powerful. It's like I like to refer to the obsession as the excuse maker in between my ears that throws out 1,000 excuses of how this time will be different, or how it's gonna, help me, or I can drink like a gentleman, or whatever it is. And so I gave into that obsession, and I walked across the street from where I was living at the time, and I bought a Pabst Blue Ribbon tall can. And as soon as I took a swig of that, it triggered my allergy. The allergy is the physical part of the disease of alcoholism and drug addiction. As soon as I put something into my body, for whatever reason, it triggers the phenomenon of craving. More. I want more. For normal people, this doesn't happen. But for me, because I'm an alcoholic, it happens instantaneously. As soon as anything is put into my body, all bets are off. There ain't no stopping me, and I just keep going. And so that's what happened. It triggered my allergy, and then that one tall can obviously wasn't enough, so I needed another. I got another. That second tall can clearly wasn't enough, so I needed a pint of whiskey. I walked down the street to the liquor store, and I got a pint of whiskey, Kessler. I drank that pint of Kessler, and that wasn't enough. And now the voices are telling me that my show is going to end at this bar called Gentleman Jim's in Vallejo. And I just need to go there, and all my friends are going to be there, and this is how it's going to end, and I'm going to get my $1 million check, and I can't wait. So I get in my car drunk, and I drive to Gentleman Jim's in Vallejo, and I walk in there, and nobody's there. Nobody that I think's supposed to be there anyways, and I felt very awkward and out of place. I left there, and now I'm pissed. Now I'm irritated that my show is continuing still, and I want it to be over. So I remember being outside of my car on the side of Highway 80 by the Islander Motel in Vallejo, California. And I start yelling at my car because there's cameras on it. And threatening to kill myself, telling them that I'm going to, go drive as fast as I can and drive into something so you people can see how serious I am and that you need to stop videotaping, like a threat, right? So I get in my car, and I'm drunk, and I'm emotional, and I'm upset, and I'm suicidal, and I'm driving, and I'm crying, and I got snot coming out of my nose, and I'm ready to die. And for whatever reason, I said the emergency help me prayer. The God help me. I wouldn't really consider myself a religious person today. I feel like I'm a more spiritual person. I'll probably get into that too during the course of this podcast, but not this particular episode, but future episodes. But prayer is powerful. I can tell you that, and I didn't realize how powerful it was in that moment. Um, but looking back, I can see the power. Right? I love what I heard one time. Somebody said, I can never see God in the moment, but when I look back, I see God's hand in everything. Man, so good, right? So I said that prayer, and I felt like, honestly, it was the first prayer that I said with sincerity. Up until that point in that prayer, I don't think I ever really said a prayer that I wasn't like trying to bargain with God or the universe, right? If you get me out of this, I'll do this or whatever. I felt like it actually came from my soul, like the deepest part, and I actually meant it, and I was really honestly seeking help, right? And so that prayer, I like to say, landed me in a 12-step meeting, drunk, and I went into that meeting and basically raised my hand and announced myself as a newcomer and said that I needed help. And I never done that before. I feel like that was my first real dose of humility, and saying that out loud to a group of strangers and being like, I really need help. I don't know what to do. I can't do this by myself. And that was the beginning of my journey. That's all I'll say about that for now. But that's what started it. And man, what a blessed life I get to live today. That was over 17 and a half years ago, and today I don't even closely resemble the man that walked through the doors that day. And I'm extremely grateful for the life that I get to live. I guess you could say I'm very well known in the recovery community. I help a lot of people these days. I do it for free because that's what we're supposed to do, right? Somebody was there to help me, so I show up and I continue to help others. And this is kind of how it worked for me, man. Yeah, without getting too much into the solution, this is kind of what happened for me, and this is kind of the reason I am the way that I am today. So I still heard voices in recovery. I didn't know if they'd ever go away, man. I mean, I was in dual diagnosis groups. I'm taking antipsychotic medications. I'm talking to a psychiatrist. I'm still in la la land. Dead, clean, and sober. Nothing in my body, and I'm still hearing voices. And I mean, I have a lot of empathy today. I mean, I'm sure some of you see on these ghetto inner city streets where people are pushing shopping carts around, and they're waving their hands to the air and they're talking to themselves, and they're howling at the moon and all that stuff. What I think about when I see these guys today is I think that you know that might have been a person just like me that took one too many hits and never came back from it. You know, don't get me wrong, there are people that are medically diagnosed with bipolar, schizophrenia, things like that. But then there's a large majority of people out there that just took one too many hits, crossed that line of insanity, and now they're just gone, and there's no coming back. And they've lost their mind, and that's where they are. They talk to themselves constantly, and they throw their hands in the air, and people are scared of them. But really inside they're just in this internal struggle of the mind. I have a lot of empathy for them, and I think about that stuff. So, anyways, I didn't know if my voices would ever go away. And kind of what happened for me is I worked these 12 steps in a 12-step program. My life changed, and you know, I turned around and I started helping people, man. I remember on my 9-month birthday, I got my first guy to help, and he was a meth addict that was, in his 40s, that didn't know how to read and didn't know how to write. So I helped him learn how to reading a book with him, and helped him write out some things during the inventory process or whatnot. And 18 days later, I started helping another guy, and I started making house calls to these guys about once a week or sometimes more, and just started, you know, doing for these people like somebody did for me. And it wasn't long after I started helping these two guys that I woke up one day and the voices were gone. Yeah, how cool is that, right? That may not mean a lot to you, everybody listening to this right now, but it means the world to me. And you could call it a random coincidence of the timing, or I look at it like I finally, quit being so selfish and turned around and tried to help somebody else that I was gifted a second opportunity at a normal mind, and those voices have never returned since then. And I had about around 10 months clean and sober at the time this happened. So I feel like I'm indebted to this program and to life in general, and that the least I can do is try to show up and help others. I don't talk about this stuff a lot, but I go above and beyond outside of my normal everyday life to try to help people who are still suffering. And as a result of doing that, I feel like I've been gifted so much. And I'm not talking about anything money wise, I'm talking about um, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And I got my mind back. And that's a priceless gift. That's something that people who know what I'm talking about would pay millions of dollars for, just to have a chance to get a normal mind. So I feel like I got that. So with that, I'm already at 40 minutes. I can talk about this stuff a lot. I like talking about it. I feel like it's important not only to remember where I came from, but also to potentially help somebody else out there that might hear this. So that's a little background. I feel like I can go so many ways with this podcast in so many different directions, and especially with the climate of everything that's going on in the world today, there are lots of things to talk about. So I definitely will hit random subjects during this pilot run of podcast. There's a few things that I want to talk about. I will obviously always continue to talk about my addiction struggles and the work that I try to do and helping others, and just kind of the solution that was gifted to me, and that could be a benefit to anybody that is trying to work on themselves, like identifying our problems and talking about them, and things like that. I will definitely touch on things like that during the course of my podcast, which I think is extremely important. I also would consider myself a truth seeker. You know, I guess I'm not your. I don't believe that the news is ever telling the truth. I haven't always been this way, but the last 5 or 6 years, I started paying more attention, and I definitely feel like we're being lied to. So there's lots of topics down that rabbit hole that I wouldn't mind touching on, and I'm just curious. I'm just curious as to give people my take and opinion and spin on things and things that I've seen. So I'll just leave it at that for now. I also have been on a constant struggle with food addiction and trying to stay healthy and fit. As a matter of fact, I was very big when I got clean and sober, and I ballooned up to around 350 pounds at one point, and I'm not 350 pounds today. I did a lot of work on myself to get where I am. I still struggle, but for the most part, I am very active and very healthy. So I'd like to talk about different aspects of dieting and exercise and things along that nature. I would also like to take a venture into things like spirituality, different conceptions of spirituality. I'd also like to talk about different books that I've read, especially Audible books. I feel like I'm more of an Audible type person. I get more out of it when I listen to it. There's tons of good books out there. I might do a book review or something like that. I would like to talk about artificial intelligence and just where that's going, and all these drones and stuff that are going on in this world. Crazy. I also have two daughters. I have two daughters, the 16 and 11. They're growing up on me way too fast. And I would like to also, during the course of this podcast, touch on being a parent, being a dad, being a sober dad, and having two daughters, and what that's like. And I can tell you right now, that's my favorite thing in this whole world is being a dad. So I definitely want to talk about that during the course of this podcast. Maybe you're unaware that at one point of my journey, I made rap music. I made 3 albums. Maybe we can talk about that. Um, just lots of stuff. I have a list of things that I wrote down, and I'm going to write down more. Um, yeah, and we'll go from there. And again, thank you for listening or joining in or watching. If you have, this is going to be Tilted Perceptions podcast with Jimmy B. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to seeing you in the future on the next episode. Thanks for watching.